what I think is probably one of the best things about my job is when I walk across in the morning and all the guys are there in the workshop and we meet up, and the camaraderie and the mickey taking and throughout the day. Something about running a big team is a joy.
As you can see, everybody, today is a good day. Harvest is done here at PX. Cultivation, sowing is all done.
Done.
You are finished up. You've been counting your plants, I've seen in your last video. But we have came down to, I'm going to call it HQ, and after the last video we did with PX Farms, where Michael, your cousin, agronomist, was talking us through the business, because apparently you had disappeared in one of your holidays. Yeah. And so
it sounds like I'm going on many holidays.
It sounds like that. What are you doing tomorrow, James?
Go on holiday. Don't tell anyone, will you?
No. If you worked out the downside to social media at this stage. But anyway, I've came myself for a walk round, and rather than sit in the office, I says, right, James, let's go for a walk round. He says, let's start at the Shed of Dreams.
My bank manager calls it Shed of Depreciation. Yes.
And we're going to take a walk, talk a little bit about what Michael was telling us in your own words, and if you don't mind, just show us a little kit and talk a little bit about your farming enterprise and some, because we do see it every day, so I don't want to regurgitate everything that you're putting out in your channel every day. So we'll try and ask you a few questions as we go along, but let's just look at some kit, please.
Most of the kit is back here now.
Yes.
And what we're trying to do is, typically in the past we would have put everything away, and then we would have dragged it all out in sort of late spring, early summer, and started servicing everything. But actually this year what we're trying to do is trying to put stuff away serviced. And I want to get all of the farming stuff done.
But traditionally guys didn't do that because it costs so much money to service stuff.
Yes.
You must be minted.
No. It's a good point, I understand. I want to work out what the true cost of farming was this last year, up to the end of September. So I want to get all the stuff fixed that's been damaged, etc. So I can actually sit down with the guys in November and say, this is what the true cost was, this is what the damage was. I want to focus on it now and with those guys, because it's interesting how people value themselves as a really good operator. Is the operator maybe a bit slower, doesn't break anything, gets from the start to the finish, is he a better operator than the one who thinks he's really quick at everything but actually has a calamity of stuff broken behind him? We've got stuff now which is costing £400,000, £500,000. If you break something, even what they might consider as minor, that might be 2,000. Well, that keeps happening. Suddenly that £20,000, £30,000 in damage. Actually, when you're looking at the profit margins in farming now of being 1 to 2%, these £20,000, £30,000 actually soon can turn into taking away the profit away.
And as you were saying to me earlier with a cup of tea, you have to try and find a way to look for somewhere between 10 and 20% savings.
Yes.
In order to try and justify this farming year.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah.
That much.
My aspiration is if I can break even, one for a better word, in a bad year, and then, you know, make good money in a good year, that's where I need to be. And I think when we had the single farm payment or the BPS or whatever they called it, the reality was there was a buffer within the system. Now the difficulty is they've taken away the payments, but the industry hasn't adjusted. So the machinery is still the same price, the land rents are still the same price, the fertilizer, the chemical, etc. So that means that we are, of course, in a world market where other parts of the world, obviously, they're setting the price. The English market isn't necessarily making any great change. You know, we've got obviously Southern Ireland, we've got Scotland, we've got Wales still getting funding, and I'm not in the UK. Now, for me, I've lost £1 million worth of funding across the areas in which we farm, and where is that million coming from? And so the efficiencies of how we farm, etc., the focus has changed, I think, more so than it perhaps ever has done. But actually, it is a constant worry of mine. We're working at such tight margins. If we can't get these 10-20% savings on what we're doing, whether it's buying in bulk, whether it's chemical buying, fertilizer, tractor buying, or whatever, we've got to find those savings, because that's the only way it's going to make us profitable. Yes. And the reality is we've drilled early this year, so we've rolled the dice, and 60% of the yield, you could argue, is driven by the conditions it's drilled in. So I would say, as we stand here today, we have put ourselves in the best place I've been in since about 2012 in terms of everything is drilled. We haven't compromised on anything. Everything's almost perfect in that sense.
Except you can't guarantee the future price of what you're going to get for what you have planted.
And I can't actually lock in at the moment at prices. I sold the barley the other day for the previous harvest, obviously, at 145. I already know that is a problem, and I'm selling for cash flow because I've got to pay the fertilizer and the chemical bills. A month or so ago, I had to sell because I had to pay the 50% of the land rent. So I'm now selling for cash flow rather than selling because it's the right price. The next year's prices, I can't lock in at, because if I do lock in, unless I can guarantee the higher yield above 10 tonne a hectare, I'm effectively locking in losses. And I think that's the fundamental issue I've now got in farming. I cannot see at the moment that there is a positive profit.
So perfect conditions doesn't outweigh a bad price?
No. And it's what's so disappointing about that is that whenever you talk to anybody else around the world, they're all complaining about the bad price, effectively. But if farmers are struggling at one end, but you've got supermarkets, for example, at the opposite end with massive, massive profits after they've put through as many things as they possibly can do to get to that end figure, and still recording the best profits ever. What the farmer requires in terms of what that percentage is back to that middle sector and the end sector, it isn't that the price of food is too cheap. People often say food is too cheap. I think people are paying a lot for food, and it's the bit in the middle is all the profit has disappeared from what the farmer's getting. And I don't believe that just because you go and charge people more money is necessarily going to deliver back to the farm at the opposite end. Percentage-wise, we only need 1 or 2 pence to effectively make a massive difference back to the farm in terms of return. You know, you've got specialism and scale in farming. They're really the two aspects, aren't they? Some people are very good at specialism and things. I think we're more structured on scale.
Well, if I pick up on your cousin Michael, what he was saying to us the last time, and then we'll maybe go into the shed, because I'm just seeing shiny kit here and must get closer to. So Michael picked up and he introduced probably a lot of our fans, not your fans, and I understand there's a crossover, of course, to the concept of controlled traffic farming.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about, you're still needing to find, we're talking about this, say 15-20% of savings.
Yeah.
But he was talking to us back then where you believe that you have a 15-odd% increase in efficiency by the controlled traffic farming.
Yeah.
So already, by the law of figures here, you should be at the upper end of efficiency.
Yeah. To work on the efficiency side, when you think that we've got 3 crawlers and 4 tractors, and then we've got the 4 combines and 2 self-propelled sprayers, and that is it, over 12,500 acres. That's all the machinery. And the difference in our model is, because I started in 2003 from a zero base, even though I talk about the fact that it's a family farm, etc., it's only a family farm in the sense I was contract farming the family land, so I didn't have that original asset to use. My model is either been renting land, contract farming for some, or buying land or buying the family out, which creates debt, which means that all of what we do is effectively already starting at sub £200 an acre to enter every piece of land. So there is no historical land in that sense that has been paid for by previous generations. So we are very efficient to allow us to have almost 100% of land based on a rental model. And the next stage is we've got to go again, because we farm over a bigger distance. So we farm 71 miles in Lincolnshire, 34 miles in Bedfordshire, and the lorries enable us to do that, the faster tractors, etc., because we can't get the land in a ring fence model. So the next stage has got to be, if you remove that £1 million in BPS payment, which the whole industry has been based on and all of the costs have, we've got to replace it. And we've got to find a way of replacing it. It's either the input costs, because we don't want to have less tractors and less staff. You know, that's not the obvious route for us, or change the model to say, look, we're going to get rid of cultivations, we're going to go direct drilling. So that means we only want half the workforce, because that isn't going to get the high yield. We are still working on the high yield model of trying to do 10 plus tonne a hectare on everything. So what CTF has done is it's allowed us to be fully efficient on where we go, when we go, how we drive, and the schooling of how everybody works within it, and enable us to farm at distance where there is a level of skill, in the sense that the guys pull into a field, it tells them exactly where to drive. And we're minimising the compaction outside of 88% of the land hasn't been driven on, and we've got 12% which has been, but we're trying to now make that do effectively 20% more from what random traffic farming is.
Four combines, all identical, all bought at the same time. So like the lorries, I've got 12 Arctic lorries, all bought at the same time. Now, one of the reasons I do this is, if everything's the same, to be able to benchmark people driving them is much easier, because they're exactly the same model, and the only difference between them is going to be the person driving them, in how they behave.
What if it's a Monday morning built tractor?
The tricky one. Then I need to make sure that goes away and another one comes in its place. I need to have the right relationship.
So this is fairly incredible now. So you're taking you're going in, you're doing a deal with CLAAS or whatever.
Yeah.
You're buying 4 combines. 8700 seems to be the combine of choice. Why an 8700?
Okay, so there's the 88 and 89, which would be bigger. I wanted to stay at 12 meters to stay on the CTF system. We tried an 8900, and then we tried the 8700, and I was really surprised how much I liked the 8700, and it suited us. And price-wise, I think if you were one operator combine and you wanted to go with a 13.5 meter header or something, you might go with the 8900. Because I wanted 4 combines, the 12 meter header, the 87, for me, ticked all the boxes, and I've never regretted it.
It's not about pride in having 4 of the biggest combines.
Oh no, that didn't ruin me.
That
No, I'm not interested in that. I wanted to, and I didn't have the C-bus put on. So we only have the basic C-bus. We worked out, but it was, there was more value in not having the C-bus, setting them all up the same, because everything comes over the Weybridge chair. We can see what came off with what combine, what was happening, and then we can actually tell them back to go change their combines, to change the settings if it's too dirty or etc. And then take the guys who drive them and spend money on having them trained, and I could even pay to take them abroad on the savings of not having all the added extras.
So you really are, when you're sitting down with CLAAS ordering a machine, you really are bringing it back to what you feel is going to suit PX Farms Limited, not what strokes your ego.
Yeah.
And the 8700 in your head is without being smart, where it's at.
Yeah, I'm happy. And I don't think any of the guys or I have ever thought at any moment we've made a mistake. If I was to buy combines again, we would go with the 8700 again.
And they're C24 plate, is it, am I right? So they're 2 season complete.
So what we do is the guys are incentivized to do over 50 hectares a day. So if they achieve over 50 hectares a day, they get a bonus. But the chaser bin drivers also get a bonus, because you get a bad chaser bin driver, the combine driver is going to struggle. So they get a bonus for every hectare above 50 hectares as well. But that's okay if they only do 47 one day in that reference week, because if they did 53 the day before, the day after, they can use the 3 and apply it to the 47 and get 2 50s.
But then you aren't worried about the stick being pushed forward and a little bit increase in losses out the back.
That's a really key point. Quality. We will be checking what's coming out the back, and it's so easy just to put the stick forward, chuck it all out the back, hit the targets. No, they've got to do the quality. It's the same with the cultivations and drilling. They lose this, they're penalised if they don't do the quality.
So basically, you're incentivizing your drivers to be on it as soon as you can get on it, and when you're on it, stay on it.
Yeah, because I've got to say to them is, I want the combines rolling at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And they'll finish combining at 11. So at 9 a.m, I want all of those combines cutting. And the fact it might be 16% moisture, it doesn't matter, because we've got the dryer and we've got the ability to blend. CLAAS will come in and they'll work with us on the farm and the engineers. For example, in the summer, we won't just call CLAAS to come out. We'll go to it first. And if we can fix it and get the parts, we will. And then we only get them out when we're struggling. And then we work together doing the servicing throughout the year as well.
Based on your own videos, you're kind of expecting them to be finished within a week or so of this date?
3 out of 4 combines are principally all done. So the outstanding things are the chopper blades, and they've currently got the front off that combine, and they're redoing the bearings and the bushes.
That'll somehow work its way down to a spreadsheet.
Yeah. When the engineer works on anything, his timesheet will get put to each machine. So we can see what the cost of running these vehicles were, what the cost of damage was, because it will get referenced as damage as well. We will reward careful drivers and with output, because you could have one guy that breaks something but only achieves half the output. So you don't want to just be rewarding him, because you need 2 of him to the other guy who did break something, but proportionately his breakages was quite small. There is often a pattern when employing people, but it is always typically the same pattern throughout the year that you'll see in terms of damage. And it could be carelessness, there's a multitude of reasons why it happens.
Girlfriend left them.
Yeah, it's like when people are sick, when you look at it in the year, you'll find it's always the same days.
You're working off the business model of measure everything.
Absolutely everything. We weigh everything. So all the fertiliser and things all gets weighed across the weighbridge in and out. And we know exactly what went where, etc. And that's, I think, one of the key things about farming which is lacking. If you can't measure it, then you can't make a proper determination or something other than emotional. And emotional farming is not a good model to work on.
So this is a crawler, 1165. For the GRASSMEN fans who don't know crawlers, what's an ABC in that tractor?
So that's 650 horsepower effectively is what that is. And then you've got the 67, which has got the Vario gearbox, the same as the Fendt tractors in. These are power shift gearbox, not dissimilar to what the, say, Cat 865s, 875s are. Principally the same, apart from the fact they put a different engine in for what Cat was.
What engine's in there?
Sisu. Is that how you say it?
Oh, is that Sisu, yeah? And so that's power shift.
Yeah, that was power shift, yeah.
And you have another 67.
Yeah. The 2 brothers, Freddie Raymond, drive those. And then the Glyn drives the 67.
Is there a preference? Very old power shift?
The power shift gearbox that we had in the 865, and that style of tractor was robust, was fantastic. And that's why I bought these. And I bought the 67 because obviously that's what's available now. You have to go with what you have unless you're going to change brands. Seeing the fuel use now of the 67 and the quietness of it, I truly believe that they have built a product now which is actually the next stage on. And I didn't think that would be the case. Actually, generally, I think it is now another stage on.
We did a video not that long ago with Charles from Eastern Farms, and he was having a bit of an auction, and he was contemplating stepping back a little bit from the big machines based on pure, we're going to say crap residuals, because so much per hour on a bigger machine in comparison to, well, I know it can't really compare, but say a 700 series Fendt or whatever, you know, is a very sought after tractor. Was this, surely this is a little bit more difficult to move on second hand, or is that just something you don't think about?
For me, I run these 10 years. They're staying. So the idea is they will do, that one there did 1,050 hours or 1,090 hours this last year. I know Glyn's done 870 on his 67. I need to look at what Raymond's has done. Typically, we would budget for them to do over 1,000 hours a year. These might come out again for the springs, or Glyn's will when he drills the peas. So he will do over 1,000 hours because he'll do the peas and etc. in that year. So if they do 1,000 hours and we keep them 10 years, they're going to do 10,000 hours. They're still going to have quite a strong following if people wanted to buy them, because it's quite well known that people don't worry about them at 10,000 hours. Now, for me, cost per hour, I think if you were to look at, say, a 1050 or whatever, you might say, actually, look, James, cost per hour, that is going to be less. But we have found these to be very versatile in wet years and dry years in being able to cope with the workload and run those big 12-metre cultivators. That, for us, has suited what we want to do on our acreage and the ability for us to grow. If somebody said to us this year, look, there's another 1,000 or 2,000 acres to farm, we could have done that, and it wouldn't have been a big stretch. Now, some people might say, well, you're over-mechanised. Well, farming is very much about being over-mechanised, because you get those really wet years where you get 2 or 3 weeks of wet weather that or you get these years where it doesn't rain and you keep going. You've got to be almost over-mechanised for the ability to be able to work in those bad years.
Michael, your cousin Michael, when we were last here, was telling us that you were moving from 4 sprayers, 2 trailed, 2 self-propelled, which we were in with Kieran on Sunday, I do believe, driving them. You were moving to 48 metres. Michael was really concerned that you couldn't replace the 4 with 2.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Have you done it?
Yes, and surprisingly with ease. I have absolutely no hesitation about it now at all. These 2 guys, Sandy and Kieran, are extraordinary how well they work together. Different characters, but work really well together. They are spraying the same chemicals in the same blocks. One will go in one field, one will go in another. Now, typically sprayers don't do that. Typically sprayers, one goes that way, one goes that way, but they've gone off together and they run the Bowser with them. They're the same when they're combining. It's an extraordinary sort of system what they're working in, and their efficiency is extraordinary how many hectares a day they can now do purely from being able to work together in blocks and keep the Bowser man with him.
And have a bit of camaraderie.
Oh yeah. What I think is probably one of the best things about my job is when I walk across in the morning and all the guys are there in the workshop and we meet up, and the camaraderie and the mickey taking and throughout the day. Something about running a big team is a joy. So there's one going up.
This is the new sprayers.
Yeah. So 48 metre, they're at 25 centimetre nozzle spacings, 8,000 litre. They've got 900 tyres on. So if you've seen them to look at, they've got really wide tyres. We did that because we've got punished by some deep tram lines, which then create some harvesting difficulties and create the extra subsoiling challenges of pulling those out throughout the year. So we've gone for 900s. So they've just filled up. They haven't been able to go this morning because we've had that poor weather, that real damp, the October weather.
But you want that. You want as much damp now as
I now need the rain.
Yeah. But HORSCH is where it's at. Everything. I'm not being smart. I'm just looking around and taking it in. Your chasers.
HORSCH are the sprayers, HORSCH are the chaser bins, HORSCH are the cultivators, HORSCH are the drills. And then we're running the CLAAS combines, and then we've got the Fendt tractors, and then we've got the Volvo lorries, and then all the trailers are made by Forth, which is based up in Grantham. So we're pretty much, once we set our mind on a particular brand, we're pretty much, it will all be, I'm a bit of an all or nothing character. If we've invested in them and they've invested in us, that should be a good relationship.
So this is where the sprayers live.
This is the spray shed, and the sprayers live in here. So we've got the centre drain in the middle, which is to anything you spill, or like that, for example, which is coming off where they've been filling up off the tap. That will go into the drain. Any chemical that might get disrupted in here, for example, would go into the bio box. And then we're then packaging all of the empties into bales. And we did a delivery on Friday. We took 2 lots out, and we're getting about £265 a tonne for plastic and £75 a tonne for cardboard. We have Agri do our agronomy, which is what cousin Michael's doing, and he's also got Henry who works with him as well. So Michael leads all the agronomy on all the farms and also manages the sprayers.
And the potions, you know, even for the viewers, again, who's not, even on your own channel, who's not aware of, you get a concoction of sprays used to do this job, and the very mix order in which you put it into the sprayer can affect whether it turns to concrete or not. You can end up with, you know.
I mean, I've had that, and that is a big problem.
Yeah. Insecticide.
Yeah, BYDV. That's what we're doing at the moment. And when you look at chemical like this, you don't think there's much here, and then you suddenly go, there's 30 grand there.
So that insecticide, that'll protect until?
Oh, spring. Yeah, take us back round, yeah. I've had BYDV issue on barley before, and that will knock 3 tonne a hectare off if you don't treat it.
And you're putting that on pretty much everything?
Yes, this time of year now. Yeah, that will be a dose that the barley and the wheat will get.
Actually, you literally are working with that much chemical.
Yeah, that's why I want to shed this big. And that's why we're having to package it and send it out continuously. So if you get your head in there, you can see the chemicals they've just filled up, they've been putting in. And then that gets crushed into these bales. And here's a cardboard one they've already done. And then they put the wire around, which is, you know, not dissimilar to the wire they use in America for the hay bales. And then we'll send that off. Now, there doesn't look like there's much there. You'd be surprised that would be half a tonne.
I'd say so.
In terms of volume, just to put it in perspective, you know the roll-on, roll-off skips? Mm-hmm. Well, we were filling those up with plastic and cardboard, etc., and then that was going off, and that was probably costing £600-800 each time. Well, we emptied one of those into this machine, did all the plastic, and then did all the cardboard, and we literally had 1.5 bales. A full hook loader full of boxes and chemicals turned into 1.5 of these bales. And we were spending £15,000 a year in recycling, having skips taken away, and we've now turned it into an income.
Incredible, Tom. So of your 12 lorries, 12 Volvos, all lovely green, very distinctive lorries.
Yeah.
On average, would 8 run every day?
No, it should be all 12.
All 12 should run every day?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Apart from weekends, it would be alternated.
Now, obviously, without being smart, hauling grain because you're in the business of making grain.
Yeah.
But what else do they do?
Liquid fertiliser, seed.
Sorry, I was just seeing a big Fendt.
That's a 65 again, 1165. And then the 67's here, it's at the workshop. We'll go to the workshop, I'll show you that. This is a 67.
This is very old.
Yeah.
So if you're doing 1,000 hours a year on a set of tracks, where does 1,000 hours a year go on a set of tracks? Not be smart, do they come down much?
Yeah, we would probably get 2.5 years. There definitely would be changed within 3 years.
So if I set off, right, let me get my head around this. 942, 960, 42, 710,
Yeah.
60, 34s in the front, axial bib 2s, which is the all singing, all dancing Michelin tyre. Lowest ground pressure pretty much tyre you can run. Probably $5 a rear tyre and probably $3-4 grand a front tyre or something silly like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just coming in at 13-14 grand to put a set of tyres on one of those, probably.
Yeah.
Give or take a few quid. What's that?
12,000 a track. So 24,000 for the pair. I know that on the wheel
Just goes to
tractors,
show you they don't charge as much for air as you think.
we would typically expect, I think, thinking out loud, I bet we do 7,000 hours on a set of 4 on the wheel tractors. And these,
okay, yeah.
just to put it into perspective, and then these are obviously going to be doing, you know, anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000
And
hours.
do they road at all?
These, yeah.
Oh, you will road them.
Oh, yeah.
You're not bouncing them up on a.
No.
Always like a man that carries a 38 in his toolbox.
It's a man's toolbox, that is. So 14,000 tonne of grain in here.
So typically, where's your grain being sold to on average?
Mostly local mills, because it's milling wheat, it's mostly going to Corby, all within about 35 miles of here. There's about 3 or 4 mills it can all go to.
Where are we now? Mid-October. So we're middle of October. Is this shed as full as you'd like it to be? Would you like it to be emptier?
It's 6,000 tonne light from the harvest. So there's 14 on here and there should have been 20,000 tonnes. So that's the effect of what the drought did.
So you're 6,000 tonnes down before you start in terms of selling and price for selling.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
Well, we are a long way sold now. Some of this is sold for August next year. Some of this is sold for between now and the 15th of November and will go out. And we are going to have to make some big inroads to moving and clearing a lot of this early. More so than we typically would. Because the reality is there was 20,000 tonne in here and we would sold 10,000 tonne, for example, you know, to have got us through until springtime. But because we've only got 14, but we've got the cost of 20,000 tonne against it, which means we have to sell proportionately a lot of grain, if you see what I mean, to clear those debts.
You've got to sell this stuff to pay your bills.
Yeah, got no choice.
Got no choice.
We were budgeting about £230 a tonne, and we are struggling to get £200 a tonne delivered at the moment. You could arguably say nearly £50 a tonne difference. Put you 20% on, we're going to need to be about 270. We are a long way back. But don't worry, next year will be better. Isn't that what we tell ourselves in farming?